I don't know if y'all know this, but the Bucks have been egregiously bad under Doc Rivers. It has not worked out. It's probably going to be one of the worst decisions I think I've ever seen from a front office standpoint. When you have one of the greatest players of all time in his prime and his peak powers, and you just decide to just uplift the entire roster, bring in Damian Lillard. Granted, I don't think that was necessarily their fault because Dame has not been playing up to par. He's been struggling as of late. No, really the entire season. But he has been struggling, and I don't think anyone expected him to perform this poorly. Actually, as I say that, we can pull up those numbers too because, boy, is this brother Dame. Woo! For the season, Damian Lillard is only averaging 25 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, shooting sub 43% from the field and sub 35% with the long ball. I think in particular these last couple of games, he has been really, really bad as well. I'm looking at these splits like at a glance and I can just tell this is pretty bad. Jesus Christ. My God, Dame, you have been this bad? Nah, Dame, this is bad. Dame, this is bad. Since December 21st, Dame has been averaging 23.5 points, little under 7 assists, 4 rebounds, and the shooting splits are just egregiously bad. 41% from the field, 31% with a long ball, and 92 on nearly 93% free throw percentage. Only turned the ball over twice, though. That also is not something that they were expecting, but I think the biggest detriment to this team has done is firing Adrian Griffin mid-season. Not because I was a believer in Griffin, because I do believe that Griffin was a bad coach. I don't believe he was executing correctly. The defensive schemes were definitely questionable. The things that he was doing on the floor was certainly hurting his team in many regards. And offensively, there still wasn't a flow with what was going on, which kind of defeated the whole purpose of getting rid of Budenholzer and also defeated the whole purpose of getting rid of Drew Holiday. If your offense was still going to struggle with some type of flow, then what was the purpose of doing those adjustments and alterations? However, it was definitely a mistake because what they got in replacement was Doc Rivers, and Doc Rivers has been doing an even worse job. So within the 7 games in which Doc has been coaching this team, the Bucks have a 2-5 record, tied for the 5th worst record in the last 7 games since he has been coaching. The offensive and defensive rating is basically breaking even with a net rating that is almost -1, which gives them a near bottom 10 net rating in that process as well. More importantly, however, offensively, this team isn't nowhere near as potent as they once were when they were being coached under Adrian Griffin. They're one of the best offenses in the NBA. So far, being coached under Doc Rivers, they have the 22nd ranked offense, while defensively they're still struggling in some capacity. Nothing really special. A slight improvement of the defensive rating they probably had under Adrian Griffin, but nevertheless, the offense was definitely playing at an all-time high level, over 120. Under Doc Rivers, it has plummeted to under 115. That type of shift offensively, of course, you can say different coach, different schemes, certain things has been certainly questionable, the flow, the rhythm. You're bringing somebody else new in on the sideline. Maybe it's some alterations. And again, we just talked about Dame, his shooting splits. He has been struggling even before Doc Rivers. So I don't want to put too much blame on Doc. But it's undeniable the results of Doc Rivers has not been a great one. And the thing that's even crazier is some of the excuses that I hear from Doc, because boy, oh boy, is this nasty.
Yeah, just, the Utah game, you kind of knew, altitude, back-to-back. Whoever scheduled a Dallas, Utah, have never been on an airplane in their life, or no time zones, So that was just a tough one. We knew that. I guarantee you when they looked at that before the year started, they were like, this was going to be a brutal game for us. End of a trip, legs, you can just see it. We've got a lot of injuries right now, so guys are playing more extended minutes. I think that's and you know what? They're playing harder on defense.
So blaming the reason why you lost one game due to altitude is, I guess. The rest of what's going on, I can't really blame on anybody else but Doc Rivers and some of the decision making. And when we sit here and we watch these games, because we watch them here on playback.tv, you can just see some of this decision making is just egregiously bad against the Phoenix Suns. Called a challenge, a questionable one, lost the challenge, which effectively meant he lost his last timeout or lost a timeout. Then after losing the challenge, decided to call another timeout, which was his last timeout, and then decided to draw up an inbound play where they couldn't inbound the ball, effectively losing that game, even though they should not have been playing. Now, again, I cannot stress this enough. That is crazy. To be fair to Doc, he didn't have all his players. Chris Middleton got hurt, and, that right there really was messed up. Actually, let me take that back even further, because there's a lot of other things. I forgot about Doc playing Robin Lopez. Jesus fucking
Jesus.
So he is right. To be fair to Doc, injuries, scheduling, that's definitely a questionable thing that's going to be hard to overcome. But also, Doc has not been the soundest coach either. He's starting Robin Lopez next to Giannis while Brook Lopez has been out. Robin Lopez, who later has been waived. So you started somebody who apparently might not even be fit for the NBA. Against the Phoenix Suns, granted, again, Brook Lopez out, Chris Middleton got hurt. Still a close game, though, very winnable. Doc Rivers decides to challenge late in the game, isn't successful, then turned around after not being successful, calls a timeout, which was his last time out in the game, and then drew up an inbound play where they couldn't even get the ball inbound, which effectively has lost him that game as well. And then you can still kind of see some of the rotations are still questionable, shaky, and offensively, again, this team isn't looking as great as they once were. Again, I'm not trying to sit here and blame Doc for everything. I think Dame performances has not been good. Brook Lopez not being there has also been bad. Chris Middleton still trying to find a groove of things. However, he has been definitely better as of late. But some of the things that Doc Rivers has done still is very, very questionable. And it's something that you have to just look into when you're talking about the decision that has been made for a team that is trying to compete. And Doc Rivers, I don't know how many more opportunities that this man is going to receive in the NBA, but the fact that he's receiving one for a team that is trying to win a championship with a really good roster, at least in contrast to most of the NBA, I think it's just ridiculous that they went this direction. Giannis is as great of a player he is, as sensational as a defender he is, as great of a talent he is as well. You know, making the decision to move off of Budenholzer and then having the availability to get Nick Nurse and basically going out of your way to say no to that, it's damning for what Giannis is attempting to do, because now you have someone on the sideline that is questionable, and Doc is already in his excuse bags to why teams are losing games. Again, some of this stuff is reasonable. Injuries has happened. Maybe the scheduling isn't the best, but for the team offensively to look this bad is certainly questionable. And part of that definitely has to do with Doc starting Robin Lopez next to Giannis. So that does have to do with him. But I am definitely concerned moving forward because it's already starting. The choke artistry, the questionable decisions, the questionable rotations has certainly already started. And again, I always stress this enough. Even if you have questions, concern about a certain coach, you have to make sure you have an adequate replacement. And Doc Rivers is not an adequate replacement. So before you start firing coaches, before your franchise starts saying we need to make some major shifts and moves, make sure you have an adequate replacement, because if not, you're going to be going from mid to mid, or maybe even worse, mid to bad. I would much rather have wanted to see Adrian Griffin get a full season under his belt before I saw Doc Rivers being gifted another really quality team and not being able to figure it out, especially on the fly when I don't think a lot of things are favorable for Doc, to be fair, but it's already starting and it's getting pretty bad. I hope the best for Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis, but I don't know. You got Doc on the sideline, brother. You got Doc on the sideline. It's kind of tough.